When life gives you lemons, whine about it. We're taking a quick peek at Demetrios, the big cynical adventure. Demetrios, the big cynical adventure, is a point-and-click adventure game mostly focused on comedy above everything else. It's the first title by French developer Cowcat Games, and is made possible thanks to a Kickstarter campaign in 2015. Cowcat had hoped to raise €2,500 to finish the game. That's $2,802.12 currently in US. They ended up raising almost twice as much as their original goal, but it's immediately obvious that the game could have used a bit more of a budget, or at least more attention put into its artwork. Generally, traditional point-and-click adventure games sacrificed pretty much everything for the ability to tell in-depth stories with highly detailed graphics. Demetrios manages to put together a pretty good story, but it really falls apart when it comes to the game's basic art design. The reason why I bring this up first is because it's the first thing you notice, and it's prevalent throughout the entire game. Demetrios follows your traditional point-and-click formula of collecting items and talking to people. Artwork for backgrounds and items is generally fine, but whenever it comes to people, there is a rather large dip in quality. All of the characters look oddly put together, and it only gets worse with the game's limited animations and cutscenes. The first thing you see when you start up a new game with Demetrios is an intro cutscene that's designed to look somewhat like a comic book. For some reason, the panels of the comic are kept really small and are put in the middle of the screen. There's a lot of empty space to the left and right sides for no apparent reason, and the art quality in the comic itself is just dreadful. Thankfully, the story doesn't take any time getting started, and that's really the best part of Demetrios. Your main character is a man named Bjorn Thornen, an antique stealer who is as much of a slob as he is a selfish and cynical jerk. Bjorn does everything from stealing random items to constantly eating food off the floor and impersonating a police officer. The man is almost entirely driven by his own self-interests, but he is one of those heart of gold characters that end up being more endearing with their flaws than annoying. This leads to a large focus on dark comedy and cynical satire, with how Bjorn deals with situations and his thoughts on pretty much everything in general. Since Demetrios didn't raise enough money to reach its Kickstarter stretch goal of adding voice acting, everything in the game is told through text. This lets Bjorn talk about pretty much every single thing he comes across throughout the game, as the devs didn't have to worry about paying someone to say every single line. It ends up working out well in Demetrios' favor, as it does help to alleviate repeated dialogue. There are usually 2 or 3 different bits of dialogue for everything Bjorn can interact with, and some of them change depending upon the current task at hand. You can also show every item in your inventory to every character you converse with, and almost all of them have some kind of unique conversational dialogue. Some characters do repeat themselves, but I found it only happening rarely. Throughout Demetrios, I felt like my inventory was a bit crowded at times, but that ends up being a good thing for this particular game. Many of the items you collect throughout the game are used multiple times to solve multiple puzzles. There are only a few places throughout the story where the game specifically got rid of items that you would no longer need, but I found myself holding on to many of them for a very long time. 2 items in particular are found in Chapter 1 and aren't used until the end of the game in Chapter 6. This does cause the issue of constantly attempting to use the same items every time you're tasked with solving a puzzle, but thanks to the mostly unique conversations about each item, as well as Bjorn's generally unique thoughts about using each item in each situation, it helps stop things from feeling all that repetitive. While Demetrios does focus on comedy, some of it can be a bit on the weird side, and it shows up a lot more than I would have liked to have seen. The game also has a bit of an obsession with literal toilet humor. I'm not usually one for this kind of bottom barrel comedy, but it's easy enough to see past. I really found myself enjoying the main plot of Demetrios and was surprised to find myself really getting into the game. It took me around 12 hours according to Steam to get through all 6 chapters, and I didn't really find myself getting tired or bored of the game during that time. The story starts off pretty simple as Bjorn is knocked unconscious one night and has one of his antiques stolen, but it soon expands into a large conspiracy involving the ancient King Demetrios of a non-existent country called No-Go. I see what you did there, game. I see it. You got talk of aliens, grave robbing, and even grave robbing aliens. The story gets rather complex without getting confusing, as Bjorn finds himself acting more and more like Indiana Jones and constantly gets deeper into danger. The thing that really made Demetrios for me was the game's overall conversations and the evolving relationship between Bjorn and his next-door neighbor Sandra and her daughter Caroline. Sandra comes off as a bit of an airhead, but is rather smart given the time to think, and Caroline is a spoiled, rotten brat. I really wasn't a fan of this character at the start of the game, but she became less annoying as the game went on. They end up tagging along for most of the game, and there's some pretty good dialogue between the characters as they learn more about each other and exactly how to deal with each other. There's even a bit where you get to play as Sandra, even though it plays exactly the same as it does when you're Bjorn. Both failing and dying are possible in Demetrios. It's actually one of the collectibles in the game. If you end up doing something stupid and get a game over screen, just by clicking continue, you'll go right back to where you were before you did that stupid thing. The game will also remember a couple of the game overs you've previously gotten, and will make a comment on them if you happen to do something similar or make the same mistake again. The only other thing to talk about with Demetrios are its minigames. There are a few of these spread throughout the game, with most of them taking place at a fun fair early on. They are generally okay, nothing really all that impressive, but not completely terrible. There's a pinball minigame that is just dang awful, but other than that, they're fine. I could have easily done without them, but they do add a bit of variety to the gameplay, I suppose. Overall, I enjoyed my time with Demetrios. The character and cutscene art really could have used a bit more work, but the plot kept me interested enough to enjoy my time all the way through. I didn't find any of the puzzles all that difficult until I got to the end and had to break out some pen and paper. This game made me do math! Math! Come on. The game does sometimes give you a lot to do at once when it gives you lists, but I never found anything to be too unbearable. Some lists tell you exactly what you need to find, but not where to find it, while other lists don't even tell you what you need, but just that you need something. To alleviate this, Demetrios does have a hotspot system that you can turn on for every screen if you specifically want to, and there is a bit of an interesting hint system. Hidden throughout every screen in the game are 3 cookies. They're usually hidden in odd places that you wouldn't want to eat them afterward, but Bjorn Thornen is not a man to look the gift horse in the mouth, and will eat any cookie regardless of where you find it. Cookies help Bjorn think and will give him hints as to what to do next. I think that's a decent way to do a hint system since you still have to work for it by finding the cookies in the first place, and each puzzle has multiple hints, so you aren't automatically told what to do just by using it once. Musically, Demetrios is alright, I guess. It's neither good or bad, as each track does enough to fit with its environment. The only one that sticks out is the song that plays when you talk to Caroline, as it's really, really freaking annoying. It's gotta be one of the most annoying tracks I have ever heard in a video game. Demetrios is available on Steam for $9.99, with its soundtrack costing $1.99 if you happen to enjoy what you hear. You can also purchase a deluxe edition on the developer's website for $12.99, and that'll give you the game, the soundtrack, an art book, and even some wallpapers, if that's your thing. That's all for now. Please let me know what you think about the game or this video in the comments section. I've Mega Pie Man, and I'll talk to you guys later. Release was how it tended to throw you curveballs when it came to difficulty scaling, and this has been entirely redone for Redux. There's also been the addition of some new enemies such as these cyborg zombie dudes, and a slight update to the visuals.